Well, there was confirmation yesterday from the Judicial Services Commission that later this year it will completely rerun its interviews for two positions on the Constitutional Court. The legal group CASAC said it would go to court to challenge the way the JSC had held the interviews, and in particular the questions that were put to judges. At the same time, it's emerged that the Chief Justice, Mogoeng, we understand, had compiled a shortlist of judges to be put forward by the Commission, and that the Commission may simply have accepted that shortlist. In other words, from what's been put in the public domain, the Commission did not really consider what was said at the interviews. It just went ahead with a pre-selected list. Alison Tilley is the head of the organisation Judges Matter. Alison, good afternoon to you. The story's 24 hours old, and I'm still, frankly, amazed by what's happened. Did the Judicial Services Commission just have no choice in the matter? Is that why they gave in so easily to this legal application from CASAC?
I'm afraid so. The interview was a mess. I think the term dog's breakfast is not unfair. And once it was being challenged, it seems really quite quickly they accepted that it was not a proper process and they were going to have to redo it.
It goes to the heart of quite a complex question, which is what question is appropriate to put to a serving judge in the only public interview they will ever give while they're a judge, which is during an application for a position on a higher court. You're also asking a politician, so a politician who's on the Judicial Services Commission, to limit themselves in what they ask.
It's a tall order, perhaps not so difficult under previous Chief Justices who kept a tighter rein on proceedings. But I think what we've seen is less and less clarity about what the criteria are for being a judge, and at the same time also, just complications around the kinds of questions that you can ask. And previously we had the Chief Justice really ruling questions out of order. And I think certainly in this last round, the questions were just, as the politicians came up with them.
Was it about, so you're suggesting the way in which these commission meetings are chaired is really fundamentally important. In this case, it's COVID-19, but the Chief Justice was there virtually, even though he was chairing it, and some commissioners were there physically.
Yes, and that in itself may have contributed to the difficulty. It's hard chairing a meeting virtually, but one certainly did get the impression that the Chief Justice was allowing lines of questioning which were inappropriate, and in fact he himself jumped in with some questions about one of the candidates, Judge Pillay, where he effectively gave her no notice that he was going to ask questions that were prejudicial, and insisted that she deal with that.
There's also this issue of this list of judges, as we understand it, that the Chief Justice had, that was then basically adopted by the Commission after the interviews. If I've understood this correctly, it seems the Commission didn't really interact with what came up during the interviews. They just went ahead with the list that came from somewhere else?
There was some discussion of the candidates before they voted, but certainly it was a list put forward by the Chief Justice, and then as far as you can see from the deliberations, which are now public record, they then went ahead and accepted his list. So that in and of itself is a difficulty, because yes, the Commission should deliberate, and individual commissioners should have their own views and make them known.
I haven't seen any statement from the Chief Justice as to where this list came from. It might well have come only from himself. Does he maybe owe us an explanation on this?
Look, I think things have got quite complicated over the last 2 days, because we've now learned in the state capture inquiry that the deployment committee within the ANC has been making recommendations, I think as strongly as the President put it, in relation to judges, and the 2019 round was specifically mentioned. So I think that's, sorry, that's a calendar going, notification going on. The question I guess we have to ask is, to what extent has that been affecting interviews, and has it been affecting the Chief Justice, or have those recommendations come via perhaps the members of Parliament, of whom there are quite a number on the JSC?
There's so many different elements to all of this, and I suppose the next question, and there's several questions that come about, what happens next? So the interviews will be reheld. Are they going to be reheld just for those two positions that the previous interviews were held for? Because there are also two other positions that are becoming vacant at the same time. So now the question is it 2 vacancies or 4?
So as we understand it, the positions that are going to be made vacant by Justices Jafta and Kampepe, those are the interviews that will be held in October, and the April list is then those people are going to be interviewed in October, less 2 of the candidates, Judges Meyer and Pillay. And then we still have the Cameron and Froneman vacancies, which are vacant, and those must then be advertised, and then they will be filled. The President also has to deal with the fact that he's got to fill the position of the Chief Justice, so potentially 5 positions out of a court of 11 needing to be filled in the next couple of months.
It's a huge,
6 months.
It's a huge change. Does anyone know who the President's going to nominate to be Chief Justice?
No, and we certainly hope that he's focusing on the issue. I realize there's a lot on his desk, but it is both urgent and important that this gets some attention.
So to an extent, already in this conversation, the role of the Chief Justice, the current Chief Justice, Mogoeng, has sort of been discussed. Is he definitely going to chair the next round of interviews? I mean, will he re-chair the same round of interviews? And I say this because he's coming to the end of his term and he's on a sabbatical. I mean, I don't know if the sabbatical applies to his position at the JSC. I imagine maybe it doesn't, because it probably applies to his term as the court, but he is the Chief Justice, and both of those roles at the court and at the Judicial Services Commission come from that position. So would he necessarily sort of chair these interviews again?
He is not coming back in October in terms of what he said in April. So the October round, we're not sure who will be chairing that, but presumably the acting Chief Justice. If the positions for Cameron and Froneman are advertised now, it's unlikely that they would get in under the wire for the October interview. So those will probably have to be held November, December, or possibly even into 2022.
Alison Tilley from Judges Matter, I really appreciate the time. Thanks very much indeed. There's a lot to discuss around judges this week.